Numbers 15 from the Net Bible. Sacrificial Rulings. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you enter the land where you are to live, which I am giving you, and you make an offering by fire to the Lord from the herd or from the flock, whether a burnt offering or a sacrifice for discharging a vow, or as a freewill offering or in your solemn feasts, to create a pleasing aroma to the Lord, then the one who presents his offering to the Lord must bring a grain offering of 1/10 of an ephah of finely ground flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of olive oil. You must also prepare 1/4 of a hin of wine for a drink offering with the burnt offering or the sacrifice for each lamb. Or for a ram, you must prepare as a grain offering 2/10 of an ephah of finely ground flour mixed with 1/3 of a hin of olive oil. And for a drink offering, you must offer 1/3 of a hin of wine as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. And when you prepare a young bull as a burnt offering, or a sacrifice for discharging a vow, or as a peace offering to the Lord, then a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of finely ground flour mixed with 1/2 a hin of olive oil must be presented with the young bull. And you must present as the drink offering 1/2 a hin of wine with the fire offering as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. This is what is to be done for each ox, or each ram, or each of the male lambs, or the goats. You must do so for each one, according to the number that you prepare. Every native-born person must do these things in this way to present an offering made by fire as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If a resident foreigner is living with you, or whoever is among you in future generations, and prepares an offering made by fire as a pleasing aroma to the Lord, he must do it the same way you are to do it. One statute must apply to you who belong to the congregation and to the resident foreigner who is living among you, as a permanent statute for your future generations. You and the resident foreigner will be alike before the Lord. One law and one custom must apply to you and to the resident foreigner who lives alongside you. Rules for first fruits. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you enter the land to which I am bringing you, and you eat some of the food of the land, you must offer up a raised offering to the Lord. You must offer up a cake of the first of your finely ground flour as a raised offering. As you offer the raised offering of the threshing floor, so you must offer it up. You must give to the Lord some of the first of your finely ground flour as a raised offering in your future generations." Rules for unintentional offences. If you sin unintentionally, and do not observe all these commandments that the Lord has spoken to Moses, all that the Lord has commanded you by the authority of Moses, from the day that the Lord commanded Moses and continuing through your future generations, then, if anything is done unintentionally without the knowledge of the community, the whole community must prepare one young bull for a burnt offering, for a pleasing aroma to the Lord, along with its grain offering and its customary drink offering, and one male goat for a purification offering. And the priest is to make atonement for the whole community of the Israelites, and they will be forgiven, because it was unintentional, and they have brought their offering, an offering made by fire to the Lord, and their purification offering before the Lord, for their unintentional offence. And the whole community of the Israelites and the resident foreigner who lives among them will be forgiven, since all the people were involved in the unintentional offence. If any person sins unintentionally, then he must bring a yearling female goat for a purification offering, and the priest must make atonement for the person who sins unintentionally when he sins unintentionally before the Lord, to make atonement for him, and he will be forgiven. You must have one law for the person who sins unintentionally, both for the native born among the Israelites and for the resident foreigner who lives among them. deliberate sin. But the person who acts defiantly, whether native-born or a resident foreigner, insults the Lord. That person must be cut off from among his people. Because he has despised the word of the Lord and has broken his commandment, that person must be completely cut off. His iniquity will be on him. When the Israelites were in the wilderness, they found a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found him gathering wood brought him to Moses and Aaron and to the whole community. They put him in custody because there was no clear instruction about what should be done to him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "The man must surely be put to death. The whole community must stone him with stones outside the camp." So the whole community took him outside the camp and stoned him to death, just as the Lord commanded Moses. Rules for tassels. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them to make tassels for themselves on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and put a blue thread on the tassel of the corners. You must have this tassel so that you may look at it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and obey them, and so that you do not follow after your own heart and your own eyes that lead you to unfaithfulness. Thus you will remember and obey all my commandments and be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God." Proverbs 11 from the Net Bible. The Lord abhors dishonest scales, but an accurate weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the unfaithful destroys them. Wealth does not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from mortal danger. The righteousness of the blameless will make straight their way, but the wicked person will fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright will deliver them, but the faithless will be captured by their own desires. When a wicked person dies, his expectation perishes, and the hope of his strength perishes. The righteous person is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked turns up in his stead. With his speech the godless person destroys his neighbour, but by knowledge the righteous will be delivered. When the righteous do well, the city rejoices. When the wicked perish, there is joy. A city is exalted by the blessing provided from the upright, but it is destroyed by the counsel of the wicked. The one who denounces his neighbour lacks wisdom, but the one who has discernment keeps silent. The one who goes about slandering others reveals secrets, but the one who is trustworthy conceals a matter. When there is no guidance, a nation falls, but there is success in the abundance of counsellors. The one who puts up security for a stranger will surely have trouble, but whoever avoids shaking hands will be secure. A generous woman gains honour, and ruthless men seize wealth. A kind person benefits himself, but a cruel person brings himself trouble. The wicked person earns deceitful wages, but the one who sows righteousness reaps a genuine reward. True righteousness leads to life, but the one who pursues evil pursues it to his own death. The Lord abhors those who are perverse in heart, but those who are blameless in their ways are his delight. Be assured that the evil person will certainly be punished, but the descendants of the righteous will not suffer unjust judgment. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who rejects discretion. What the righteous desire leads only to good, but what the wicked hope for leads to wrath. One person is generous and yet grows more wealthy, but another withholds more than he should and comes to poverty. A generous person will be enriched, and the one who provides water for others will himself be satisfied. People will curse the one who withholds grain, but they will praise the one who sells it. The one who diligently seeks good seeks favour, but the one who searches for evil, it will come to him. The one who trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. The one who troubles his family will inherit nothing, and the fool will be a servant to the wise person. The fruit of the righteous is like a tree producing life, and the one who wins souls is wise. If the righteous are recompensed on earth, how much more the wicked sinner? Luke 24 from the Net Bible. The Resurrection. Now, on the first day of the week, at early dawn, the women went to the tomb, taking the aromatic spices they had prepared. They found that the stone had been rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men stood beside them in dazzling attire. The women were terribly frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has been raised. Remember how he told you, when he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and on the third day rise again?" Then the women remembered his words, and when they returned from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told these things to the apostles. But these words seemed like pure nonsense to them, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. He bent down and saw only the strips of linen cloth. Then he went home, wondering what had happened. Jesus walks the road to Emmaus. Now that very day, two of them were on their way to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking to each other about all the things that had happened. While they were talking and debating these things, Jesus himself approached and began to accompany them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. Then he said to them, "What are these matters you are discussing so intently as you walk along?" And they stood still, looking sad. And one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened there in these days?" He said to them, "What things?" "The things concerning Jesus the Nazarene," they replied, "a man who, with his powerful deeds and words, proved to be a prophet before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. Not only this, but it is now the 3rd day since these things happened. Furthermore, some women of our group amazed us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body, they came back and said they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive." Then some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they didn't see him. So he said to them, "You foolish people, how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Wasn't it necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things written about himself in all the He acted as though he wanted to go further, but they urged him, "Stay with us, because it is getting toward evening and the day is almost done." So he went in to stay with them. When he had taken his place at the table with them, he took the bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. At this point, their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Then he vanished out of their sight. They said to each other, "Didn't our hearts burn within us while he was speaking with us on the road, while he was explaining the scriptures to us?" So they got up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem. They found the 11 and those with them gathered together, and saying, "The Lord has really risen and has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how they recognized him when he broke the bread. Jesus makes a final appearance. While they were saying these things, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." But they were startled and terrified, thinking they saw a ghost. Then he said to them, "Why are you frightened, and why do doubts arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and my feet, it's me. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have flesh and bones, like you see I have." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they still could not believe it, because of their joy, and were amazed, he said to them, "Do you have anything here to eat?" So they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate it in front of them. Jesus' final commission. Then he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled." Then he opened their minds so they could understand the scriptures, and he said to them, "Thus it stands written that the Christ would suffer and would rise from the dead on the third day, and repentance for the forgiveness of sins would be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things, and look, I am sending you what my Father promised. But stay in the city until you have been clothed with power from on high." Jesus' departure. Then Jesus led them out as far as Bethany, and lifting up his hands, he blessed them. Now during the blessing he departed and was taken up into heaven. So they worshipped him, and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple courts, blessing God.